Hello, friends. Welcome to All the Things I Wish I Knew, called the quiet version of depression. My name is Van, and I am a person that has gone through depression, anxiety, suicide attempts, faced childhood trauma, a lot of things that has happened to me, and I had the courage to face everything and kind of get out of it. I'm still working on myself every single day, but I wanted to use my experiences and my downfalls and lessons to help encourage and bring up all of you guys who have stumbled here on my channel now. You guys might be sitting somewhere in your rooms at 2 a.m. in the morning, 3 a.m., sitting at the beach at night, sitting in your car, sitting in a parking lot, wherever you are, and you stumbled across this video, this podcast, this episode. I hope you can take a minute to kind of listen to this and try to heal just maybe 1% or 2%. And I'm here for you and for everyone. And also, this is a safe space for everyone that's struggling with whatever it is mentally. We all are here together, and you all are not alone. So if you think you have depression and you're not sure, this episode is going to dive into a few key points to kind of look for when you're struggling with depression. So number one is looking fine externally. And by that, I mean like you can still go to work, go to class, go to school. For example, like I would go to work every day, go to meetings. I would smile at the receptionist, say hi to her, talk about how my weekend went. Like a couple years ago, I remember going in for a Christmas party and everything was just so festive, so happy. And I had the most littlest idea that I was struggling from depression until right after the party, when I went into my car, I sat down and I felt just really sad, like more sad than normal, more heavy. I couldn't even start the car to drive home. And I never felt this feeling, and I was really scared. So just because you look fine externally, it doesn't mean that you aren't struggling from depression. So a lot of you guys might not even show signs of depression at all, but it's lingering and it's probably waiting to fester and grow inside of you. So some of the key things to look for are like internally, you feel tired, mentally exhausted, like you don't have any space or any room to kind of socialize after work or like call family, call friends to check in on them. You feel emotionally disconnected. And this is a big one because a lot of us, we're human beings, and we are kind of creatures where we like to socialize and connect with other human beings, whether it's culturally or ethnically or whatever it is. We want to vibe and kind of have a common ground to talk about anything. So when we feel emotionally disconnected, it means that not only are we emotionally disconnected from our friends or our family, but we're emotionally disconnected with ourselves. And when that happens, you start feeling empty and you start drifting through life. An analogy that comes in my head is like, think of like a piece of wood, right, in the middle of the ocean. It's just drifting. It has no destination, doesn't know where it's going, whether it's up and down, left or right, north or south, east or west. It's just drifting and drifting until either one day, like, it's so wet that the wood deteriorates and everything just disintegrates into the ocean, all the pieces break. Or it just keeps drifting until somebody else finds it, throws it somewhere else, and then it's just going to keep drifting again. So what I'm trying to say and get at is that when you feel like you're drifting and you have no purpose in your life and you're just waking up every day, going to work, going home, smiling, going to the bars, to the clubs, playing tennis, playing soccer, playing baseball, attending all these social events or concerts or shows, whatever it is. But all these things are just kind of like bearing up that quiet depression that we're all facing. And a key thing that I felt was that when people would ever compliment me on certain things, like, oh, you look good, or your hair looks good, I like your style, I'd always smile and and just kind of say, hey, well, that's nice. Like, somebody thinks I look nice. But the moment that I am by myself, I think that is when I feel like all the good things, all the happy things that people say about me, it doesn't really matter. And that leads me to point number 2, is that you're constantly feeling emotionally exhausted internally, right? You're overthinking. You're burning out emotionally. Your mind is always running. It's never stopping. And by overthinking, for example, right? Like, say, I had a story that I wanted to share with you all. Is that when I was not healthy mentally, at the lowest point of my life, instead of facing the depression and facing the trauma that I had been going through, I started to date. And that's a big red flag, because if you start to date, and the moment you get into a relationship where you start to have feelings for someone, and as the time and the months go on, everything that you are struggling with will be exposed by your partner, because you have to have a good relationship with yourself in order to have a relationship with someone else. And by overthinking, for example, I remember I was at a park one day and I was in the bathroom, and I went to the bathroom, and the person that I was kind of spending time with, talking to, dating, she kind of wandered off somewhere. And the moment I left the bathroom, I went outside and I couldn't find her. So immediately I started overthinking, like, did she disappear? Did she run off with somebody else? Did she get kidnapped? Did she not like me and just like distance herself from me and just disappear? So my thoughts started spiraling, and I started feeling more negative and negative. And the next thing I know, I was burning out emotionally, and I got so upset and so angry that I couldn't let go of this thought. And so normally a healthy person, now that I've done so much work on myself, which I can share with you guys, a healthy person emotionally knows when their emotions are starting to act up, and they're able to catch themselves and challenge the thoughts of overthinking, and kind of journal to themselves that at the end of the day, these are the things that I felt, and these were the things that I did to kind of combat and face those constant overthinking. So, long story short, if you're burning out emotionally and you feel like you're never able to rest, that is a sign of depression. And it's not loud. It doesn't like scream, I'm sad, I'm lonely, I'm empty. People looking at you might not even see that you're depressed, but only you feel numb inside and sad, right? So you can be exhausted without physically doing anything. Your brain is constantly running, and you feel like you're just replaying certain memories, and you feel anxiety mixed with loneliness. Your feelings emotionally drained after social interaction. So all these things I have felt before, especially when you come from like a family where it's very big. And I feel like if you are so close to your cousins, or you're close to your aunts or uncles, or even your parents, but the moment you leave that social environment, you feel a big sense of emptiness. And I think that is something that we ought to face and challenge if we're going to try to overcome depression. And that's something that leads me to point number 3, is I think a lot of us, and by saying this, I'm sure every one of you in this world has faced loneliness in adulthood. And I think some of these key points I want to talk about are like maybe drifting friendships, feeling disconnected from society. Everybody's getting busy with life, right? If you're a college student listening to this, sometimes your friends, graduate from college, they find jobs, they move to other cities, other states, even other countries, and you feel like the once best friend that you had is someone that you feel like is slipping away, and next thing you know, you feel like strangers, and you're thinking to yourself, should I delete this number or should I keep it? So I want to talk about drifting friendships for a second. And I remember in high school, right, there's a story that I want to share with you guys. And I played on the tennis team, and you guys might be playing soccer or baseball, basketball, whatever it is. It's somewhat relatable. Like, it is a sports team, and I had a doubles partner, and the doubles partner, I remember he just came from India, and I had the most amazing relationship with him because we were both minorities. We had parents that didn't speak English very well. We were both really good at tennis, and we were like the number one doubles team in our school, and we won a lot of matches. And we hung out together. We always ate food, whether I go to his house to eat Indian food or he come to my house to eat Asian food, whatever it is. I feel like at some point we were like kind of brothers. Like, everybody couldn't separate us apart because they thought that we were like brothers from another mother. But long story short, as we went to college, he got new friends and I got my own new friends, but I would always try to keep in contact. But I noticed that he started kind of ignoring my texts, ignoring my calls, and next thing you know, I thought of something that could kind of rekindle the relationship a little bit, and I wanted to introduce him to one of my friends, which was a girl. And long story short, this girl was the girl that he ended up marrying and having kids with, and after that, he totally disappeared from my life, like vanished. So these kind of things, like, if you're not prepared for, could cause such a huge emptiness in your life, especially if you don't have a lot of friends and you have one really close friend that drifts away. So how do you face that, right? That could be for another episode. But in this one, like, these things cause a lot of damage, and you might feel very lonely in adulthood. And because of this, I think people start to look at dating apps, start drinking alcohol, going to bars, and they kind of lose their purpose, right? And a big sign of depression for me was that I started using dating apps to find connections. And I can talk briefly about this because I think a lot of people out there, especially guys, or especially people that are lonely, they want to have a connection so bad. And when you date someone, you kind of fill that void in your heart temporarily, but eventually that void is going to become bigger and bigger. So instead of like facing your depression, facing your problems, you're kind of getting a hit of dopamine and you're feeling temporary moments of happiness, right? But if you're a guy and you're using this method, or you're not even realizing you're doing this, girls are not stupid. They'll figure it out, and they can tell if someone is lonely or someone's just like trying to use them for something, or like humans trying to gain something through humans. I think it's a big emptiness that is gonna come and chase you and hunt you, and you'll feel this when you're driving alone, when you're waking up alone, when you're showering alone. So there's so many apps out there, right? I remember when the height of Tinder came out, like, I was using Tinder every time I was traveling, and my phone would just be filled with like 4 or 5 dating apps of constant notifications coming in, like, this person's interested, that person's interested. I think I wasn't even looking for a relationship. I just wanted to have a connection with someone, and it could be anyone, whether they're young or old. As long as they liked me or they wanted to talk to me, I was happy. But I was just numbing the pain, right? If I met up with them to go have a dinner, or like if I picked them up at their house, I would be laughing and joking and like saying all these things that looking back now, I feel like it's a little bit a fake version of me, because I feel like you should be more genuine to people that you like instead of just covering up your weaknesses and your depression. But then again, sometimes people have depression, and there's different version of depression out there. But for me, it was mostly just kind of feeling empty and trying to look at dating apps to try to have people connect to me. And I think that is one of the biggest key signs of quiet depression, is just feeling very lonely. And part of feeling lonely, it's ironic because you want to find more people to talk to, more people to date, but the more you do that, the more lonely you feel. So for people out there, for you girls and guys that are listening to this, if you are feeling lonely and you're wondering why you feel lonely, that is a sign of depression, or it could be childhood trauma, or both. I think probably take a step back and get a little help. But in this series, I think we're just going to try to focus on the symptoms or some of the key things you want to look for in quiet depression. Another thing is quiet depression is quite the opposite, right? And that's eating alone or isolating yourself. So not everybody that has depression would want to socialize or use dating apps to talk to a lot of people or to meet people. A lot of people prefer isolation, right? They want to be by themselves. And for me, like, one of the biggest things was that I had really big kind of mood swings. Like, for example, I would socialize with a lot of people, have dates with probably 2 girls in one day, and then the next thing I know, I don't want to talk to anybody, and I'm sitting alone in my car eating Taco Bell and just crying and wondering what is wrong with my life. And here I am, also parked outside of my home, not wanting to go in, because if I go in, I know nobody's waiting for me. Wondering if anybody has my back or knows my pain. And that is something that I think is really critical, because if you always feel lonely and a big sense of emptiness, for example, if you feel like nobody loves me or nobody understands me, or like you feel like there are moments where you genuinely felt alone in the world, these are the questions, these are the signs that lead to quiet depression. If you have these thoughts or like curious about something, this is something that you should know or you should kind of pay attention to, because it's not easy. And if you have a good, backup system or like a support system, I think you wouldn't think these things. Or if you do, it'd be very subtle, but not to the extreme. So I think that is something that you have to be careful about, because being alone is okay, but if you are always wanting to be alone and isolate yourselves, that's another thing. The last thing I want to talk about is family trauma, right? Emotional distance. Now, this is a big one, because if you are a child and you had a lot of abuse, whether it's verbal or physical, and your parents didn't have the emotional support system or the emotional knowledge or wisdom or EQ to kind of raise a kid. A lot of parents, especially like the older generation, they had a kid because it was the right thing to do, and they had a kid because maybe the kid was going to take care of them. But raising a human being is extremely difficult. Having one is very easy, but raising one is very, very hard. So you can grow up carrying so much family trauma, and that will cause you emotional damage and emotional distance. And that leads to quiet depression, because your trauma is unresolved. You have resentment in your family. For example, if your dad or mom always hit you and you grew up, you would always learn to lie because you wouldn't want to piss them off or give them the impression that you're not focusing in school, you're not, you failed the test, but you want to lie to them because you don't want to be physically abused. And that creates resentment as you get older. And all these wounds add up more and more. And it creates this emotional distance within your family. So you can still love your family, just like how I did. But I chose to carry their pain and also put my pain as secondary. So I think you guys are listening to this episode in this very critical moment where you guys feel like you're carrying the pain and you feel like you want to help your family even though they treated you bad. Like what is the right thing to do? I think the question you should ask is, am I okay? Like, do I have quiet depression because of this? Because the first person that you want to stabilize first is yourself. So there's so many things that we've talked about in this kind of episode so far, but quiet depression it's a big thing, and a lot of people don't really talk about it because, number one, they don't know how to talk about it, and number two, in some societies and cultures, talking about depression or internal struggles is frowned upon because your employer might think bad of you, or your friends might look down on you, or like your peers might pressure you into being weak. Whatever it is, I think as I got older, I learned that it's okay to be weak, to be scared, to be sad, to be depressed. Because as human beings, we're all very resilient. And as I'm talking to you all now, this is a very safe place for you to open up in the comment section or post on Instagram, whatever it is, send me an email. I feel like the more we come together and the more we share stories, whether we're struggling or not, I think we want to create a powerful, safe space for all of us to kind of heal and recover. So it's a long journey towards healing, but all the things I wish I knew that I discussed here today were things that I had learned through struggle, through pain, through breakup, through hardships, through failure, and through self-harm, a lot of self-harm. But I survived. I'll share details of how I survived later, what I faced, but in this particular episode, and the message I want to send to all you listening to this episode now is that you are loved, you are cherished, you are beautiful, and that every single human being that is struggling with something right now deserves to be heard. So it's a long journey, and I hope you could stay with me and subscribe to this channel and start your journey of healing, because all the things I wish I knew now, I want to share with you guys so that you can know and learn and get a head start in healing versus having to go through difficulties like I had. Anyway, how was that as a first episode? I hope you all are staying at home, whether you're feeling sad or depressed or empty. Find some good positivity through this episode and have some hope, because hope is what allows you to be brave, and being brave is the first step to facing your depression. So with that being said, I hope you all can close your eyes and have a good night or a good morning wherever you are in the world. Just remember this: you are all loved. Thank you, and tune in again for our next episode. Please like, comment, and subscribe.